Hi, it's Rob from the Brush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to paint eyes. Okay, the first colour that I'm going to be using is Vallejo White. This is going to be to do the whites of the eye. I'm going to be using a Wargamer character brush from Army Painter. What you want to do is you always want to drag the brush from the inside part of the eye, which is nearest the nose, to the outside of the eye. As dragging it away in this way is a lot easier than trying to either point the paint onto the eye, like using the tip of the brush and sort of like poking that in to try and get it. It's also a lot better than either trying to brush it downwards or drag it across from the outside of the face to the inside of the face, because if you do it that way you're likely to get the white on the nose. Now with this video I am going to be using a couple of different miniatures just to show you different ones, but the concept is the same with all of them. I'll also be showing how to correct some of the common mistakes that you get on them. So now we're going to be using a little bit of Vallejo Black, and all we're going to do here is get a little tiny spot of it on the end of the brush, and you're just going to paint in a little pupil there. So what you want to do is try and get the tip of the brush almost to the very top of the eye, and then gently bring that down and just catch the eyeball with the very tip of the brush, ever so gently. What you can happen here is you can either have a pupil which is very long, like up and down. You can either have a sort of like huge blob, so the pupil's massive, or you can get it so that it's over part of the eyelid, which I'll show you how to correct later on. But if you do any of the other ones, you can just use it like a tiny little bit of white paint, which you'll see me correcting later, just to get that done. Okay, so we're going back to the start again here. We're going to use a little bit more white, and we're using a Warlord Games Roman Legionnaire. And once again, we're going from the centre by the nose and dragging the brush away from the eye. I was just painting the very edge of the eye there, and then here I'm dragging it from by the nose to the outside of the face. Like so. Now once again we're going to be using Vallejo Black. I'm just going to put two tiny little spots on the eyes there. Ironically you get this pretty much spot on for the Roman Legionnaire and the Roman Centurion, and then when it comes to doing a couple of Space Marines I make some excellent cock-ups on the eyes. I have to keep correcting them, so you will see how to correct a few different little errors that you can get when you're doing eyes. But the basic principle is the same across all of them. So you're always going from the inside of the nose to the outside of the face for the white, and then you go in and doing a gentle press with the very tip of the brush towards the top of the eye, ever so gently pressing that down until you get the paint on it. I do find it quite difficult to record videos where I'm doing the eyes, mainly because the miniature is probably about maybe a foot or so from a face when I'm trying to paint with the camera in front of me there recording, so it does make it that little bit more difficult to get the eyes. But as long as you get the general principle of it, that's fine. And so here's complete there. So this is the finished Legionnaire. Quite pleased with his eyes there. Next up we're using one of the Space Marine Primaris Intercessors. Exactly the same as before, we're going to use Vallejo White. Any white will do really. And you want to be dragging that brush from the inside of the eye to the outside. And turning the miniature again so that you can get that in the right place to drag it from the inside to the outside again. And I'll just keep that off camera. Apologies for that. I do find that when you're painting one eye you can do it sort of stood upright, dragging it left to right because it feels quite a comfortable way to do it. However, when you're doing the other eye, I do have to rotate the miniature, usually either 90 degrees or 180 degrees, to be able to do it the same on the other side. So now we're going to be using a little bit of Vallejo Black to put the spots in. Sometimes when you get those spots in, you may get a little bit of the black onto the eyelid. If you do, you can use some of the previous colour that you've just used to highlight or paint it, just to get rid of that on the eyelid, and then where there's a space between the white of the eye and the eyelid, you can then recolour that, and I'll show you how to do that on the final section of this with one of the Space Marine's eyes. So what you might find sometimes is that you get a bigger spot on one side than you do on the other side, or when you're adding something, one pupil will be slightly further in one direction than the other. So what I tend to do is, if it's slightly in the wrong place, I will use a little bit of white just to paint over part of that pupil, just so that that gets kind of moved into the centre. So if you put the spot over to the right hand side of the eye a bit too far, put a little bit more black to the left of that, and then slowly use a little bit of white just to touch that up and slowly edge in one side. So now we're going to use a tiny little spot of Reichland flesh shade, and all I use this for is when you've got maybe the white or the black of the eye onto the eyelid there, you can use some of the previous highlight colour just to get the eyelid in the right shape, and then use a little bit of the shade that you've used for the flesh just to go around the edge of the eyelid or the edge of the eye, and that just gives that darker part underneath and stops the eye from joining onto the eyelid too much. Because if you have the white sort of going down onto the lip of the eyelid, it'll make that look a bit stranger. So here you can see that it's kind of okay. I'm quite happy that for one of the tabletop ones. All we're going to do is add a little bit of Carrowbird Crimson here, and this is going to be to just add a little bit of redness around the eyes, which is what I tend to do for the Space Marines. I always think of the battles that they're in, there's going to be loads of smoke and there's going to be loads of, I don't know, gases and things like that going off, and fumes, so I always do a little bit of red around the eyes as though it's a bit stingy or something like that. I'm not too sure really, but the little bit of red around the eyes as well will also help with any little overspills that you have on the eye going onto the eyelid too. Once you've got that done, that'll be the eyes finished. Like so. So there we have the finished Intercessor's eyes. We're going on to Intercessor number 2. We're going to use a little bit of white once again, start from scratch. We are going to do a white line going from one side to the other, starting with the left side now. I can't believe we've got it out of shot every single time. We are going to go across there, that one. So you can see there that I've gone onto both of the eyelids. So we're going to use a little bit of Citadel Reichland flesh shade. And while it's off camera here, I'm just going to be painting on a little tiny bit of that on the top of the eyelid, and that just gives that dark spot around where the eye is once more, so that the white doesn't join up straight with the eyelid. If you put that down, you can still see the white showing through. Just wait till it dries, add another little spot, wait till that dries, and just keep doing that, and you will be able to work that white piece away. That'll just mean that you've got the shade around the eyelid before you get to the actual white of the eye, like so. So now we've got the white of the eye done, we're going to go on to a little bit of Vallejo Black just to put the pupil in there. Because you want him to be looking where he's pointing, he's going to be sort of looking out the corner of his right eye, the left as we're looking at it, and his pupil is going to be a bit further over on the right eye, so it looks like he's looking down his finger as he's pointing, like so. And the final head, I'm just going to show you a little bit of cock up on how to correct it and try and do that in a bit better camera angles and things like that. So we're going to use white once more just to paint on the eyes. So we're going Again, from the centre of the face to the outside of the face, we're going to rotate that round so that we can get the other eye, like so. Just going to put a little bit of white on this one. This is exactly what I was doing on the other ones, but then suddenly, disaster, whoops, we're spreading that paint all over the eyelid, so I can show you how to correct that. So you've been painting the white for the eye on, you spread it too far down, you've got it all over the eyelid, and a big area there. So to be honest, that's not too bad, and we can easily rectify that with no problem. But what we're going to do first is we're going to use the Vallejo Black, and we're just going to paint a pupil on each eye. I'm just going to lash these on in a bit of a haphazard way so that we can correct them too. So that eye is looking sort of up left at the moment. Just touch that up a bit. Get it so it's got a decent pupil on there. And now we'll go on to this one here. Oh, look at that, his pupil's far too big as well. Like so. Okay, so we're going to start correcting this eye. To be honest, I've done far worse eyes than that in the past. My old Space Wolves used to have some amazing eyes. The squad sergeant for some of the Wolf Scouts was looking off in several directions, but pretty sure that was so he could see the enemies coming. Sure, Marines can do that. But we're going to use a little bit of white first, just to correct that pupil like we just did there. Now we're going to use a tiny little bit of Citadel Reichland Flesh Shade, and we're just going to do what we were doing earlier. And you're going to use that just to tone down the white underneath the eyelid and then on top of the eyelid as well. And if you can tone that down, if there's just a little spot of white there, or there's quite a bit of white there, you can probably use Reichland Flesh Shade and just gently apply that and keep gently applying it, and that will darken down that spot of white until it's a flesh tone, which seems to work quite fine. Now we're going to touch up the pupil a little bit with a little bit of white. Oh no, disaster again. We've blobbed on more white. So what we're going to do is spread that white down towards the corner of the eye. And we're going to use a little bit of black just to put that pupil back to the right spot. So you can see that right eye, his left eye, is looking up while the other one's looking left. So all you want to do to correct that is put slightly more black on the bottom of the pupil, so that the bottom edge of it is as low as the one on the other eye. Then we're going to get a tiny spot of white on the end of the brush, and we're just going to go across the top of the eye there, and by putting in a little white line at the top of the eye, that will make it look like his eye is looking left rather than up. So you end up with eyes like that. So that is the basic method for painting eyes. And if you practice at that, you'll be able to get the eyes pretty much spot on each time. You'll still have to correct some, but less chance of you having to do so. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media linked below. Thanks very much. If you liked the video and you enjoyed the channel and you'd like to support us, you can head to our coffee page linked below where you can buy us a brew. Thanks very much.